I have shorthanded a lot of my work and kind of increased health, mental, emotional, spiritual health, however you want to frame that, is like the animating in my question in my life that is less true today than it once was, but is still very true, is, am I lovable if I'm not impressive? So every time there's something that makes my amygdala fire, there's a threat to my impressiveness, means the amygdala fires, because then I wonder, does anybody love me? And I probably ultimately wonder, does God love me if I'm not impressive? Even though I could consciously tell you, no, that's not true. Amygdala has already fired at that point, because that's a threat to me.
In a world that often feels divided, it's easy to assume we have less in common than we really do. We've become quick to label one another and slow to listen. We let politics, faith, and headlines define people before we've taken the time to know their story. But what if we chose curiosity instead? What if we believed that honest conversations could build understanding, even when we don't agree on everything? I'm Justin Ahrens, and this is Design Of. Before we begin, a quick note. No matter where you land politically or what your faith journey looks like, I hope you listen to this conversation with an open mind. Jon Houghton and I don't try to solve the world's biggest issues. We simply have an honest conversation about leadership, identity, faith, community, and what it means to care for one another in a divided world. Because at the end of the day, this episode isn't about any of those things. It's about people. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Jon Houghton.
Jon, we've been friends for a while.
Yeah.
And it's so good to be here with you. And thank you for sharing with me your incredible studio. We'll get into that for sure.
Absolutely.
But to start, why don't you share, who are you? What are you doing? How would you describe the stage of life you're in now?
Yeah. Okay. 45 years old, 4 kids, wife. Professionally, I spent 20 years on staff with Young Life, so in varying levels of leadership. I can talk about that. Great experience, loved it. And I would say I was sort of always drawn to the macro side of it. I loved leadership development. I love kind of organizational leadership, and I love the mission of Young Life. But I was a little angsty about just figuring out. A friend of mine said, sounds like you want to know if you can hit a curveball, not just a faster fastball. And Young Life can keep offering you faster fastballs, but see if you want to hit a curveball, which is a pretty good description. So 3.5 years ago, then I switched into this role of the CEO of Holy Post Media, which I'll tell you more about that. That's my primary work. And then also grateful that, I don't know if it's sort of the side job or luckily they overlap a little bit, but I also lead Chicago Fellowship, which is a men's ministry in the city of Chicago that's kind of a mix of marketplace leaders and nonprofit leaders that are all trying to more faithfully follow Christ. So I kind of get this relational ministry side that I had in the past. I get to scratch this itch of trying to figure out if I can be an entrepreneur, but still kind of towards this missional end of what we're trying to do with Holy Post. So at best, which is most days, is at best, I pinch myself of how many kind of boxes I get a check of things I'd be interested in. At worst, I have days where I think, I'm not sure I'm good at any of the things I'm doing. And I know I used to be good at something. And so I have many more of those good days now than I did. But I'd say 2 years ago, that was really up in the air to me.
So besides your friend giving you the, fast pitch versus curveball, what was it that you felt at that time? You're like, you know what? I spent a great 20 years doing this and I want to shift. Yeah,
I think there's probably a few things. So one is I watch a lot of people leave poorly, which can happen with plenty of institutions or organizations, but people that stayed too long, eventually were either bad at their job or bitter when they left, or maybe left when they were less marketable at that point. So they left for something less desirable. So I kind of always had this sense of I want to leave on the early end, not on the late end. If I'm going to leave. So I had a little bit of that. Be honest that I watched my dad probably stay in a career beyond where he enjoyed it. And I just probably had always some amount of what did your dad do? That. So he was a head tennis coach at the University of Iowa for 35 years or something. So in many ways, great experience. And I knew there was a long part of that where he didn't love his day-to-day work. He might listen to this podcast, but I would say it always kind of broke my heart that he didn't see the value that he could bring elsewhere. So I don't think he had enough confidence in himself to think that he could switch to something else. I don't want to do that. I had a friend that, told me that this is a poor way of thinking about it, but it is a part of how I thought about it. I knew that I was an effective leader in the nonprofit world, but there's a part of me that felt like, yeah, but that's the JV. Yeah. And I wanted to know, could I make it in the marketplace? And, wise friend of mine said that's he said, there's good leaders in nonprofit space and there's bad leaders in nonprofit space. There's good leaders in the marketplace and there's bad leaders in the marketplace.
Yeah,
so he said, that's a dumb way of thinking about it, John, but if you need to scratch that itch, scratch that itch. And I basically agree with him. I think that there are some, we could get into this too, but I think there are some ways to hide poor leadership in nonprofit that it's harder to hide in the marketplace. You just get exposed if you can't get the job done a little bit more. So but I think I had a little bit of that. So just kind of enough of that antsiness. And I think I'm not putting my best attention on the bullseye of my job. That's not fair to the organization either. So kind of went through a pretty darn thorough discernment process to get to the point of doing what I'm doing now.
Out of curiosity, what's the distinction in your mind saying that nonprofit is, maybe not the big leagues?
Yeah, I think this could probably be true in the marketplace too, but there's I could talk my way into raising money effectively, tell a good story about the organization, and you can raise money and keep it going. Mm-hmm. And I'm good enough at that. I'm good enough at kind of earning trust with people. And so you could probably actually get away with not doing a good job of what you're doing and stay funded, to be blunt about it. I think in the marketplace, there's probably ways you could do that, but eventually people buy your product or they don't buy your product, and that gets exposed. So I think that's true. I think that the second example of that was just very clear to me, we raised so Holy Post is a for-profit Christian media company. Quickly, I'll say that the primary reason why we've chosen to be for-profit is we think it increases our editorial freedom to be able to cover things the way that we think they need to be covered, without looking over our shoulder at what major donors think about the way we're covering it. So that's like core to what we're doing. But we needed some capital to be able to scale this. Yeah. And so we did raise investment money. And the same people that I had raised philanthropic money from were some of the people that I was raising investment money from. And they asked entirely different questions. And I was lucky, based on those relationships, to end up being able to get meetings with people that many people would, have to work very hard to get them meetings with. But they asked very different questions. And I had to have my stuff together way better. I had to both be able to tell kind of the missional story of what we're trying to accomplish and the difference it'll make in the world, and why I believe it was possible. I also had to be able to demonstrate that we were going to be able to execute on those things. And they were very kind, but one of the guys said, in some ways this felt sort of paternalistic that he said it this way, but that's all right. Johnny, you're giving me nothing here, Johnny. You gave me nothing to chew on. I want to be in on this, but you gave me nothing to chew on. And, I had given him the same type of thing only months earlier. And so that was so I think there was some evidence to that.
Yeah, let me jump in. There's two things that were just kind of floating around. So I'll ask you two questions. You can answer whichever one gives you most energy right away. So do you think, and again, this is a generalization.
Yeah.
Do you think in general that is a sign of some things that are broken in like American nonprofit fundraising?
Yeah.
And then the second one would be, when he said that to you, did you instantly get what he was saying?
Great questions. I get worried about too much of investor marketplace return on investment mentality in nonprofit world that I think, especially in Christian nonprofit world, that could be almost like antithetical to the gospel about effectiveness, efficiency, taking you away from the calling that you're supposed to have. And I think that could be problematic. I could probably articulate.
But you do agree that you want those missions to be effective.
But I have more concerns about the conversations that nonprofits have in closed doors behind the backs of donors when they are aware that they are not nefariously, but they are telling a different story publicly than the reality of what's happening behind the scenes. And because I just couldn't have my head hit the pillow at night if I was telling a different story out there than what's happening. I don't think I did a ton of that, but you can always say, we're about to do this, we're about to do this, we're about to do this, we're about to do this. So I'm more concerned about, yes, I think nonprofits need to operate at a level of sophistication more consistent with an expectation of level of excellence. The same guy that said that to me has told me, very generous, incredible family, that, they give to over 200 organizations. And he said, most of those ministries is because we just love the hearts of the people and we give a little bit. Now, the truth is, what they're giving is a lot, but it relative to some of their other giving. And he said there's about 10 organizations that combine the strategic vision and effectiveness of the marketplace and the heart, and we make major philanthropic investments in those. But he was acknowledging most of them, we know they're not that good. And, I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I think nonprofits should operate better than that. But again, there's some fear of, and I think that a lot of times what happens is there's that old community development proverb that says those closest to the problem are closest to the solution. So now there's really wealthy white people often that have a lot of power that come in and bring that mindset, and they say, we have solutions to solve your thing. That's my concern if philanthropic becomes a little bit too like the marketplace. At the same time, nonprofit leaders need to be honest. We're hiding a lot of the time by telling some positive story and pulling on the heartstrings of generous people.
That's good.
I have no idea this is where we're going to end up. What was the second question you said?
The second question was, when he shared that with you, did you get it right away? How did you feel?
So here's one of the really nitty-gritty things I learned is raised a lot of money philanthropically. Now I'm raising money in investment spaces. In my mind, private equity and venture capital is two names for the same thing. I get closer to it and I realize this will be oversimplified and expose me as a novice once again, but venture capital is usually like we're investing in an idea and a person, and this is a long shot, big guess, early stage. Private equity is usually they're making investment decisions based on looking at past financials and seeing where we're going to get to. Well, I went to this meeting with this guy, treating him like venture capital when his background is private equity. And so I went leading with stories, not with spreadsheets. The truth was I had all the spreadsheets. So I had to say to him in this meeting, I came prepared for this literally when I said, I came prepared for the wrong meeting. And while sitting there, I attached the files that I should have attached ahead of time. That was an easy lesson to learn there.
Yeah.
But it felt like, in some ways I was learning it in a high stakes moment and actually at the table. Because of my long-term friendship with the guy, it wasn't that high stakes. But
yeah. Well, that's great though.
Yeah. Oh, as lucky as can be.
So if you can think with me back from as far back as you want to go to now, who are some of the leaders that you think about or greatly influenced you, or the ones that made you see something in you that maybe you didn't quite believe yet?
Yeah. The probably biggest influence would be my wife, which could be sort of a throwaway line, but we worked together in Young Life for many years, and she's just a highly, highly competent leader. That the most unique thing about her that is just totally not true of me by nature is the most unique combination of not caring at all what other people think of her without being like selfish and self-centered. Just this freedom of who she is to just be who she is and lead the way that she is and waste no emotional energy on what other people think of her. I've had 10 thoughts about what people think of me by the time I've been with somebody for 10 minutes, you know? And so the freedom of that, this combination of this like total pragmatist, like just get stuff done, but not in a way that like leaves heart out of it. So I just have been able to see her leadership up close. So that was a huge thing. Jack Nikovich was my boss in Young Life for a lot of years. I think he's like world class in his development of people, and can just see through to the truth of you and get at the root of things, and including that thing that I was just talking about there, my too much energy spent on what other people think of me, you know, and just got at the root and helped me become so much of a healthier leader. And I think the thing that Jack and then Paul Estridge is another guy along the same lines, the fact that now at 45, I've left a couple different jobs, twice. Once I left Young Life, the other time I left Indianapolis Young Life to come to Chicago. Really nice gatherings of people that I had supervised as we were leaving. You kind of get to have almost like the eulogy kind of thing, right. You know, people say nice things. And at 18 or 22, I never could have imagined that the common theme in all of those was the way that I said hard things to people that helped create freedom for them in their lives, help them become more of who they're capable of being, but I had the courage to say things that unlocked them. That was the common theme. I said things in a way that they could receive, but I said hard things to them. I mean, the first 20 plus years of my life, I never would have imagined, because I cared so much that the person across from me would like me. But they helped me discover how generous and caring and loving that is. And then I think back to all of my childhood, and again, like super generous of people, but people always saw some leadership in me. And I can think back to the number of times where people would say things like, people can hear things from you, Jon, because of the way that you carry yourself. People can hear things from you. But it took Jack and Paul and some others to help me realize, so then you are being selfish if you don't say things that could unlock things in them. And so I think that combination of things would be the people that drew things out the most for me.
So we're talking about leadership, and you have a very specific lens and way you look at leadership. So share with me what that is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love this topic. I think that the first step is a leader needs to be healthy in these ways I talked about. I didn't even know this is where we were going, but that we're
you know, I do homework.
I appreciate this about you, Justin Harris. I appreciate this. That the leader has to be healthy enough to have margin to think beyond themselves. If I spend all of my time across a coffee table from you thinking about what you're thinking about me, or thinking about how our relationship impacts me, or what I can get out of you, or I don't have the margin to think beyond myself about what actually gets in the way of Justin becoming who he's capable of becoming, spending all of that time thinking about me. So I think the first step of this is that I need to do what I'm responsible for me to be healthy enough to think beyond myself. And then through that, I have the margin, the mental and emotional margin, to do the thing that I think most leaders miss. I think most leaders, and I'm not saying I do this perfectly, it's a theory. What most leaders do more lazy leadership, which is they skip the diagnosis step and they prescribe universalized solutions to customized problems. The thing that gets in the way of you becoming who you're capable of becoming is very different than whoever I was sitting with last hour. And so first I work on my health such that I can think beyond myself and use that to diagnose what gets in the way of Justin becoming who he's capable of becoming, or what's Justin uniquely good at that he should be doing more of. And then the third step of that, once you have that diagnosis, is to be able to prescribe that in a way, or coach people in a way that they can hear it, like I talked about earlier. So I might be able to identify this block, but if I can't communicate that to you in a way that you're able to receive it and willing to do. So I think that this becomes this cycle Because as you do that, it stopped being where, oh my gosh, how am I going to have this conversation with Justin? I got to schedule a meeting with him. I got to think through how I'm going to give him this feedback. No, I just become, I cannot unsee that lens. I cannot unsee that lens, through that lens. So I think the thing is, maybe the top of that, kind of before you even get to that cycle, is this, what I think a lot of people try to do is manufacture results out of the people that they're supervising, let's say. And the truth is you cannot manufacture results. But if I can help you become who you're capable of becoming, you are likely going to be more effective at your work and be a better husband and father and brother and citizen and neighbor. That is like, I'll do that all day long. I do not want to spend my time trying to manufacture results out of it. That just sounds soul sucking to me.
It absolutely does. But I want to step back really quick, because when you started the conversation, it feels like to me, the core to this is understanding yourself first.
Correct.
Like, it's that concept, if you're not healthy, then how can you help others be healthy? So what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, do you agree with that?
I 100% agree with that. I think that there's another thing I try to do myself. I might coach it or teach it better than I do it myself. But I think that I used to think that like our capacity, our emotional capacity was a fixed asset. You have as much emotional energy as you have, and now you just need to steward that or allocate that well. I actually don't think that's true. I think that proper sleep, proper diet, counseling, therapy, if you're a religious person, some sort of spiritual disciplines, hobbies. I think those are the things that say this, whatever tank of emotional capacity I have, now actually grows. And then from there, picture that tank, then I think the majority of people, what they evaluate is, am I doing too many things? To me, that's the number of boxes inside of this tank. And sometimes we need to eliminate boxes. Maybe I don't need to coach my son's soccer team, or maybe I should stop whatever the things.
But what about if you love some of those things?
Some of those things can be life-giving for sure. Yeah. So you got to be selective about eliminating some boxes. But I think the main thing is, what's the size of the box? So when I'm unhealthy, first of all, I might not be doing those things that lead to more capacity. But secondly, I'm often giving disproportionate amount of emotional energy to something. It's a box I can't eliminate. There's an email in my inbox from an upset customer. There's an email in my inbox from an angry donor. There's an email in my inbox from a colleague that's frustrated. I can't eliminate that. But usually when I'm unhealthy, it's because I'm giving that disproportionate amount of energy. And
let me qualify that a little bit more. So are you saying you're giving a disproportionate amount of energy because maybe you're in a healthy state and you don't have the capacity to manage it well, so it takes on a bigger shadow on you than it should?
Both. It's both the diagnostic tool is, whoa, John, probably a sign you're not healthy right now, because that thing is freaking you out, and it's not worthy of freaking you out. So then this has just become like shorthand in our house between my wife and I will say, I think you need to shrink that box. So then how do we shrink that box? There's probably something I need to figure out in this metaphor that my ability to shrink that box is partly, well, maybe there's a couple things. It partly goes back to the spiritual discipline. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating right? Are you drinking too much? What are those things?
Yeah.
But partly it's within that box. How do you shrink a box is you need to identify what do you have control of in this and what do you not have control of in this. What of what they're saying is true and what's not true. So I think there's kind of some ways to work at shrinking that box, but those are some of the tools. I at my best, I'm doing all of those things. I have a long history of therapy and counseling. I'm a verbal processor, if you can't tell on this interview.
It's funny because I usually talk with my hands on and I'm sitting there thinking, I maybe need to chill or John's going to blow it up.
I'm a verbal processor. I've been, meeting with counselors or therapists for many years. That's really good for me. So I would say, like, I invest a lot in that health category. I don't leave that to chance. I don't do it perfectly, but I don't leave it to chance that I have the emotional margin to bring who I want to be to work, and that I have the emotional margin to respond to my kids the way that I hope to respond to it.
I found it interesting. I do this as well, is we qualify when we're giving someone some wisdom or advice, but I might not do it great. I think maybe we just know that going into it, right?
Yeah. You're the first person to tell me I don't need any more of your disclaimers. I have a tendency to disclaim it.
Well, I have shared with you in the past that I think you're incredibly brilliant, but you are quick to say the opposite of yourself.
Say more.
Well, like, just earlier we were talking about, leadership and all that sort of thing. Or before we got started, we were talking about technology. Yeah. It was like, I'm not really good at that. And that may be true, but I think in some ways we all have our own little defaults, right? Yeah. And sometimes I've noticed with you, and I can say this to you as a friend, and we can also cut this from the show, is that from a default standpoint, that's one of yours.
100%. This is a little bit meta because I'm doing it again, but it's like I miss in that direction more than I miss in the other direction. I think I have such a fear of coming across as arrogant or elite or superior or something that I'll then miss in the other direction a lot.
Well, I love this because one of my questions and curiosities is, this is something I think about. I have 4 kids and been married for a long time, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
But why do you think we resist feedback that would help us grow?
Sincere question. Do you mean we as a universal we, or we as in Justin and John?
Well, we can answer however we want, but it's a little bit more universal. Yeah. And I asked the question because, like you, I'm a big fan of counseling.
Yep.
I also have a coach.
Yep.
And what I love, my therapist and my coach have both said, if you go to a therapist, a coach who doesn't have a therapist, a coach, you should probably not go to that.
Yeah.
And what I take away from that is that we all need continued feedback.
Yeah.
But there are times where it feels like you're getting feedback that is mandatory to the stage of life you're in right now. And sometimes we just resist it. And I would like to say it's easy because it's the ego or shame, whatever. And it's probably all those things. But what is your lens on that?
Yeah. I think that this would be an example of just my deep admiration for my wife, whose father just passed away unexpectedly. And we've been reflecting on how much of what I'm about to say about Annie she got from her dad, that I admire so much about him as well, is this, I don't know another way to say this, just like this deep, deep, deep sense of their identity as God's beloved that then doesn't feel threatened by the feedback of others. It's not threatening anything about them. And so that makes it that for Annie, part of what I love is I say that she doesn't care what other people think. That's probably not right. It's what other people think doesn't threaten her core identity.
Like, she feels comfortable who she is. And I mean, no one likes to hear things negative about themselves. But I'm taking away from this that she can process that and be like, that's their opinion, and it's not how I feel.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a superpower, by the way.
Or, they're right. That's cool. I'll start doing that. I'll change that. I have shorthanded a lot of my work and kind of the increased health, mental, emotional, spiritual health, however you want to frame that, is like the animating in my question in my life that is less true today than it once was, but is still very true, is, am I lovable if I'm not impressive? So every time there's something that makes my amygdala fire, there's a threat to my impressiveness, means the amygdala fires, because then I wonder, does anybody love me? And I probably ultimately wonder, does God love me if I'm not impressive? Even though I could consciously tell you, no, that's not true. Amygdala has already fired at that point, because that's a threat to me. Where it's like, I'll just keep using Annie as the example, that it's like, that's not the animating question in her life. So if somebody doesn't think she's impressive, they have to give her feedback about something, she's just evaluating that feedback. She's not just have an amygdala that's fired that says, you have something to be scared about. And I think a lot of us, myself included, as I said, that threat scares me. So that feedback, I want to be lovable. And if somebody has feedback for me, maybe I'm not as impressive as I thought, and therefore not as lovable as I want to be.
Versus Jon in a healthy state, I can process that and understand that that is a perspective that I can lean into or not lean into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you ever read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck? Oh, it's so stinking good. But just like this growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and the difference between kind of how we respond to feedback if we're in growth mindset. It's just all opportunity. Fixed mindset is like, that's a threat to my identity. Like one of the things she talks about is like, when you're a kid, would you raise your hand in class and ask a question? And it's like, before I finished the sentence, I was like, heck no way. Because all of education was to demonstrate that I knew everything. Whereas if you're in growth mindset, education is about learning. One of the great joys of mine is that my kids, and we've like reversed that. And
so their hands are going up.
Their hands are going up. Ask the question, expose. What are you scared of? I'm a lot better on that today than I was before. And frankly, even this career like that we started with, like this career shift, I went from a place where I knew how to be impressive there. I knew all the right doors to walk into, all the right things to say, all of it. I knew how to be impressive. And part of the shift was intentional of like, I think I'm healthy enough now that I can go into something new where I will not, at least initially, be impressive. And it was super hard. It was super hard to not be impressive. I think ultimately it was good for me. Is good for me.
How do you know you're impressive? Or were you just using your own impressive barometer?
I think just my own impressive barometer.
Okay.
Yeah. I think people were kind to me and people knew that there was going to be a runway to figure things out. I don't think anybody else was sort of disappointed with my performance. There probably would be hard data that you could use to say, maybe that wasn't so good.
Right.
But I think it was more my own barometer.
All right. Well, before we move on, because I want to dig into Holy Post a bit, you were talking about the book that, what was the book?
Mindset?
Yeah. And so what I love about Mindset is there's a couple of things that I've been working on that I just want to run by you and see how you feel about it. So I have a great friend that in any situation, if I talk to her and looking to her for wisdom and advice, and she's like, why don't we pause for a second? And what happens if we think about this situation is happening for you and not to you? And that takes you from a dualistic to a non-dualistic perspective, but also takes you from whatever mindset you're into a growth mindset to be, ooh, yes.
Yeah.
What can I learn from this? How can I, use this energy to discover something about myself and admit maybe things have changed, right?
Yeah.
That's along the same line you're talking about?
Sounds glorious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great reframing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that one. Holy Post Media.
Yep.
I'll just start with the question that, when I tell people about it, and just like, why does it even need to exist?
Yeah.
What makes it different?
Yeah. So I think this is not actually necessarily the tribe that I come from, but there's a lot of people that maybe grew up in, these would be triggering kinds of words, but conservative, evangelical, kind of fundamentalist, white Christian spaces that have become very disillusioned with the church, at least, and if not with God, with the church. And so they push against that, and they feel, many people feel like they're given the choice either between sort of maybe the bundling of right-wing politics and faith, that they are interpreting at this point as like sort of bigoted, hateful, unloving. So I can either be a Christian and be that, or give up my faith. And that is a scary place for them. So I can't tell you the number of people we hear from of like, you saved my faith. I thought I was alone. That's probably the most common thing. I thought I was all alone. And so
because just, if I may, for those listeners who may not have a faith perspective, I think these are my words. So
yes. I'll probably agree with that.
By all means, jump in. So I grew up with a multi-faith perspective.
Yep.
One being zero faith.
Yep.
Another Catholic faith.
Yep.
And then another Protestant Lutheran. Eventually into the Baptist pool.
Yeah.
And so all levels, all kinds, right? And eventually, when I was a senior, some friends, we just always went to church, and that was great. And so that they became a part of my life. Fast forward to now, as a 50-year-old man with, in a world that labels things. I'm in the brand world, right?
Yeah.
We look at trends and personas and stories and labels and all that sort of thing. I want none of that in my life.
Right.
And so I look at it now where, yes, I believe in the framework of my faith, but to be an American, to say a Christian in a lot of the circles I'm in, I wouldn't want to do it.
Totally. And even more so to say evangelical.
Yeah.
That's not a label or identity that I've ever owned or cared that much about. Evangelical. But that gets even more so right now when whatever it is, 81% or whatever the number is voted for Donald Trump. And we've had no problem in Holy Post Media critiquing Donald Trump and critiquing kind of the Christian support of Donald Trump. So I don't mind naming that reality. We're also not partisan. This is not to say that we think everybody should be voting Democrat. And what we want to do, and then I'll kind of get back to why we need to exist, why we think we need to exist, is what we try to do is critique things that are antithetical to the way of Jesus being done in the name of Jesus. And so this,
like, for example, posting social media posts of yourself as Jesus?
For example, the inhumane treatment of immigrants.
So,
another example.
Just a couple. I'm not laughing. It's not funny.
But totally. Yeah. But again, the inhumane treatment of immigrants, not just the inhumane treatment of immigrants, but like defending that or supporting that as if it's Christian to treat inhumanely. And so the reason that I can say that I would feel pretty confident saying we are not partisan is that we get critiqued for punching right and coddling left, and so no. I actually think we're very consistent in critiquing things that are done in the name of Jesus that are antithetical to the way of Jesus. It does not mean that the political or social left does everything correctly. Of course, they are just less often claiming the name of Jesus and doing that. And so there's a whole bunch of people that find themselves in that space. The person that taught my Sunday school class, my parents, are now supporting this person, supporting this movement. We're not entirely in this. I hate how central Trump is to all of what I'm describing.
I know it's crazy. Yeah.
It's a thing that people can grab a hold of. That person that taught me Sunday school is now on Facebook, saying this about immigrants, stoking fear and anger of others, denying systemic racism is real, all of these things. So you find yourself in that position and you think, so are my choices give up the faith of my heritage that I actually believe in, maybe my community, or be a part of something that I don't agree with at all?
Yeah.
And they stumble into us and say, wait a minute, there's a way of being a faithful, we would say, faithful Christ follower that actually causes me to not fear somebody that's other, that causes me to work for racial justice, that teaches me to treat immigrants humanely, hospitably. And so then there's like this refuge for them that they discover, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
And so
because there's conversations I have now with people that have left the church or those who are not part of the church but have a relationship with me.
Yep.
And I share with them that I have a faith perspective.
Yeah.
And I've actually had some of them say, wow. So you voted for Trump?
Yeah.
And I was like, why would that be the automatic assumption? And or am I racist?
Right.
And you name it. And it feels, again, going back to the labeling perspective of where that's part of, you know, I mean, you know this, we're as humans designed to understand story, to see ourselves in story, to understand our own hero's journey. And I feel it just infuriating these days.
Yes.
To be in these sort of categories or labels that you can't get out of. And or you try to explain how you feel about something and it so feels like so heavy immediate.
Yes.
And it's just really fascinating to me. So
one of my teammates here, she runs our social media. I just thought she said it so brilliantly that there was a time for Holy Post. Again, keep in mind that much of our audience would be in some level coming from sort of conservative Christian backgrounds. And there was a time where the prophetic thing for Holy Post to do was to critique Trump and the MAGA movement and those that have identified with that, to call it out. Because the tribe of white Christians was mostly getting in line with him. So we were critiquing. But now the truth is we've lost from our audience most of those people because we've been consistent in our critiquing of Trump. And so if people are like fully team red hat, then now the prophetic thing for us to do, we think in a good way, a rightly prophetic thing, is to say, people that voted for Donald Trump are also created in the image of God, worthy of dignity and respect and love. And so we don't want to now stoke more fear and anger in creating another other.
Right.
We want to have credibility, but in calling things out. We also want to be challenging you and I to say, oh, if we're going to fight to love and give dignity to an immigrant, we should also give dignity to crazy Uncle Bob, or, you know.
Well, you've been a part of our At the Table experience, and I also want to support what you're saying here. And that is, for those of you who may not know, At the Table was something a friend of mine, Brian, and I started where we bring together 4 strangers. Sometimes they know each other, but usually not very well. And the only rule is Brian or I have to know them. And we bring people in from different backgrounds, beliefs, ages, sexes, et cetera, et cetera. And I will tell you, Jon, the thing that just I walk away with, the first time this happened, I think I actually cried on the way home. I had 2 people in the room. I was thinking about when I was going to At the Table, oh my goodness, they are so opposite.
Yeah.
This could go bad.
Yeah.
And you know what? They loved each other the most.
Of course.
And that's what I want. That's what I love. And I believe that's partly what you guys are shooting for here is, hey, these things are true.
Yes.
And I don't want to make this conversation about Trump because enough airtime already.
Right.
And I have friends who still love a lot of what this administration is doing. And I work really hard to be like, okay, tell me those things, and or let's not talk about it. Let's just talk about these other things that I have in common, because I don't want to make this about that.
Totally.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not saying anything unique here, but just the closer we get to people, you find someone who share values. And I said earlier that I don't necessarily come from the tribe that Holy Post is primarily serving. I come from a family of origin, a community. I currently live in Oak Park outside of Chicago. That's a pretty proudly liberal community. I come from Iowa City. That's a pretty proudly liberal community.
Oh, we have to stop.
Red State.
We have to shout out Joe.
Joe's here.
Hey, Joe.
And so you can see it happening on both sides, the othering of
for sure
folks, you know. And so why did I say that? I think that I had to tell my family at one point, it's like, I have friends that I think it would be hard if they came to Thanksgiving with us. Because kind of from the other side of
how'd that go?
my family is super high character. So they didn't really realize how much they were doing it. And then they asked for specific examples, and then I gave specific examples, and they were great with it, actually. You still fall into traps. I'm sure I fall back into some traps like that, but they were great about it. So yeah, I think there is, again, nothing unique in saying this, but the closer we get to each other, the more we realize that we have in common and all of that. So I think we lose some people from the Holy Post audience too when they find us to not be as angry as them about their chosen whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's just good to look in the mirror. Do I do that ever? Or I just am mad at somebody for them not being as angry about the same thing as I'm angry about. And that's not what we don't want to perpetuate that. We want to, I think, again, critique things enough that gives us credibility to have an audience, but then to not be, so somebody used the phrase, or a few people have used the phrase, that we're like a refuge for disillusioned Christians. I like that initially. I like that. When I picture a refuge, I picture sort of like a scummy pond. There's no moving water.
Right.
We just wallow in our anger and frustration and disillusionment. And so I want us to be having enough credibility by willing to critique and call out things that are antithetical to the way of Jesus. Well, I want to take people somewhere generative and positive.
Yeah, well, as a media company, and this is something that I've realized as I'm sitting here talking, I've always wanted to ask a media company. Yeah. So I'll ask you.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that? What is your truth dial, or what is your true north, or how do you, keep that balance?
Yeah. Well, we have a list of values. That's not that unusual. We have both like internal values, but external values. Any media that we create wants to be aligned with these values. We don't do this as systematically as I hope to in the future, but we will audit our past content. We'll do this a couple of different ways. You can just pull up our grid of what's on Instagram right now, if that's how somebody consumed us. And we would say, of these 7 values, what are we hitting? What are we missing? Where are we over-indexing? And then we use a grid that I've used for a long time on feedback. So we're not a massive media company, but we're big enough that we get a lot of feedback, whether that's comments on social media or DMs or through our website or whatever. Use a grid for, the way I say it is, the reliability of the source. Is this just a troll? Is this just a hater? Is this someone that has expertise? I think sometimes we'll have people that will critique. Esau McCauley is one of our contributors. He's like a leading New Testament scholar in the whole world. And people will tell us we're getting something wrong about whatever, Esau's area of expertise. The reliability of that, no, that's a low score.
Right.
But so reliability of the source of the feedback, consistency, is there a pattern of this? Is this something we're hearing a lot, that you're actually not dignifying anybody on the political right while hating on those that are doing the same? Is there a pattern of that? We need to pay attention to that. And the third one is the significance of the concern, which to me, what that is the number one way that we measure that is there something that we're doing that is perpetuating harm towards marginalized people? We're talking about something in a way that hurts marginalized people. If somebody doesn't like our choice of topics, or they don't like Sky's voice, or they don't,
right,
significance of concern, that's a 1. You're talking about a group of people or an individual person that's created in God's image in a way that's not dignifying to them, that's a 9. So we use that grid for the way we measure feedback, and then we audit our content against our values. That's the best version of it.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So as we're getting to the end, I would love to know, for you as a leader here, and for Holy Post Media, you can answer in both the directions. What do you hope Holy Post Media's legacy is?
Yeah.
And what do you hope yours is?
Yeah. I think that, we want to be hospitable towards all people. We believe in a pluralistic society. I'll get to that. That's one of the main things the impact that we want to have in the world. And yet we are strongly orthodox, believe in orthodoxy, Christian media company. So like one of the things we would say is we want to close the back door of the church, that there's a mass exodus from the church in America, not entirely, but largely related to the church's commitment to culture war issues. And we want to close that back door. So Holy Post will have been successful if we were one part of closing the back door of the church. People feel like this is a place that I fit and I belong.
I recognize this.
I recognize this. This is something I do want to be a part of while staying true to the church's teachings. So that would be one part of the legacy of Holy Post Media. Second part is that because we believe in a pluralistic society, we would like Christians to be working for the flourishing of our neighbors, even if they have a different worldview than us. And that wouldn't it be great if there's a day when that's not even necessarily more people believe the same thing, but that you don't feel like kind of ashamed in the circles you're in to say, I actually am a Christian, or that the reputation of that is different. Why? Not because we had some great PR campaign for Christians, but because we were actually consistent with what Jesus taught us to do in loving our neighbor, even if our neighbor has a different worldview. So those are lofty. We would only ever play one small part in that, but we want to play a part in that. And I think for me, the legacy would be that those things were what mattered most to us, and I know that's cliche to say in some ways, but I give Phil, so the founders of Holy Post includes Phil Vischer, the creator of VeggieTales. Just amazing to me that 9 out of 10 people, when I say, I work with the guy that created VeggieTales, regardless of whatever their faith background is, 9 out of 10 say, I know VeggieTales. So I work with Phil and Sky, and I give them a lot of credit that they were at the top of the list of what I said earlier, of giving me the room to grow into knowing the media industry, because they wanted a person that cared about the ministry that we're doing. And so I would like that to be my legacy.
I love it. Well, I mean, looking backwards to where you came from, to the experiences you had, to our early conversations when you took this job to now, it's impressive, my man.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So one last thing I forgot to ask you. Let's just talk, if we can, about your leadership network.
Yeah.
In Chicago, what's it called again?
Chicago Fellowship.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't have my notes up. So,
I could tell you were like, John, I'm saying something you're supposed to be picking up on.
Chicago Fellowship.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I'm a funny person to be leading Chicago Fellowship because I have long had an aversion to both marketplace ministries and men's ministries. I don't like most men's ministries because I think they perpetuate stereotypes that are not true and accurate. I don't like most marketplace ministries, which is kind of a niche thing anyway, but because oftentimes I think it's people that just kind of stroke the egos of rich guys and say, give your money away and treat your wife right, and that's what it means to be a Christian. They're really kind of networking places to meet other Christian business people. And so I started going to Chicago Fellowship probably because I was raising money. And that's where there were kind of high capacity Christian people that were generous. And I go, and my predecessor at Chicago Fellowship, is an older white guy that was teaching on systemic racism to some of the most influential people, mostly rich white men in Chicago, and doing it in a way that was palatable, that they could hear, that they were challenged by. So I think most of white evangelicalism, white Christianity in America had no framework for racial justice issues before the murder of George Floyd. Chicago Fellowship had been talking about that for years in courageous ways, but in ways that made people not run away from it, but keep running back to it. And so I went reluctantly, then ended up loving it. And so now the fact that I get to be a part of kind of stewarding that space, what speakers we're putting in front of them, making relationships between both marketplace and nonprofit leaders, helping people more faithfully follow Christ kind of in all areas of their life is just incredibly life-giving to me. But so much of it is because of my predecessor, Ray, that stewarded some of those same gifts that I have in ways that were so admirable to me. People can hear things from him. So if people can hear things from him, you should say something. And that's what we try to do at Chicago Fellowship.
That's awesome.
And men are really, I think women are too, but lonely. And so I'm not breaking news there.
Yeah.
And we describe the group as intergenerational or multi-maturity. And so I say often that to be a part of an intergenerational, interracial group, everyone's going to have to give up some preferences to be a part of it. It could be what time you're reading. It could be where you're meeting. It could be the type of content that you're doing.
Yeah.
But everybody will claim to want to be in intergenerational relationships. Oftentimes people will claim to want to be in interracial kind of relationships, learning from each other, but they're oftentimes unwilling to give up some personal preferences in order to do that. The cost isn't worth it to them. And I'm just like so admiring this group of men that it actually keeps growing. And part of that is maybe because we're not like trying to grow. We're just creating this healthy community, but that they all are willing to give up a little bit in order to be in those relationships. And it's like super impressive and admirable that that's what they want.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it also feels like an amazing thing for you to be a part of
100%.
As CEO of Holy Post.
100%. So when I was with Young Life and doing Chicago Fellowship, the overlap in the job was very clear. A lot of overlap relationships even. Now it is like two different jobs, and Sky, who's a part of Holy Post Media, is a part of Chicago Fellowship also. It is really good to have people that you're in real relationship with, not just a microphone that you're talking to,
right? And
you get feedback by way of social media.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like actually interacting with real people. And so that's been a real gift for us too. So
I love it. Well, thanks, my man.
You're welcome. I got more energy and excitement. I want to talk about something else.
No. We got that's a lot more ending for me. We're good.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
This is fun.
You had no idea, huh?
I had no idea.
Jon, thank you. Thank you for your honesty, your humility, and your willingness to wrestle with some of life's biggest questions. I appreciate the way you lead, the way you listen, and the way you remind us that leadership isn't about getting more from people. It's about helping them become more of who they're meant to be. And thank you for joining us. If this conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or made you think a little differently, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone who could use it. Those conversations are how ideas spread, relationships grow, and change begins. And one quick personal note, my new book, Being Humankind, Choosing Courage, Compassion, and Clarity in a Distracted World, is now available on Amazon. If you've enjoyed the conversations we've had here on the Design Of, I think you'll find many of the same themes woven throughout its pages. I hope you check it out. And before you go, a huge thank you to Sleeping at Last for providing the soundtrack to our show. Ryan's music has been a constant source of inspiration. And if you want to hear more, visit sleepingatlast.com or search Sleeping at Last wherever you get your music. A special shout out to our incredible audio engineer, Steve Wick, who loved this episode so much, it reminded him of his favorite VeggieTales song.
Drop. Broccoli, celery, gotta be VeggieTales.
I truly hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did creating it. If you did, please leave us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. Share the show with your friends, post about it on your favorite social, and help us keep these stories going. You can follow us on X at Design Of Podcast and check out our site at rule29.com for more. And as always, thanks for listening. Keep noticing, stay curious, and design a life that matters.